Good evening, everyone. We are continuing in Job chapter 10, continuing on from where we left off yesterday. These two chapters presents Job's second defense. Uh, and this time is with regards to the response of Bildad, his friend. And he has said enough in one chapter in chapter 9, demonstrating some form of an internal struggle. On one hand, he has to come to terms to accept what he is facing, and yet he is not understanding why these things are happening. And he is discussing a lot of ideas that he is sharing with regards to God and his due respect to God, his utter reverence of God, his utter fear of God, that he knows that he is not an equal with God, and how would he be the one to question God? We continue in chapter 10, and I suggest that all of us continue to bear in mind the person that we are discussing is Job. In chapter 1, he is told to us that he is blameless, he is upright, he is God fearing, he shuns all evil. And then the conversation between Hasatan and God took place in chapter 1 and chapter 2. He lost his family, he lost his wealth, and then he lost his health. And all through, he did not sin with his lips, where he says, God gave and God takes away. And with all regards, he is very adamant that he needs to honor God, even in such trials. Now, also try to appreciate that Job is in utter, desperate pain, very painful, as if he was about to die. He cannot bear nor tolerate this. And here comes his friends telling him that he must have sinned because God doesn't uh, hide his judgment from those who are wicked. So both Eliphaz and Bildad has come to this conclusion, and both times Job has insisted that he is blameless. So now we continue with chapter 10. Now, chapter 10 says this: I am disgusted with my own life. Now, this word disgusted here is an English word, um, and it's not wrong actually. This one literally means um, feel loathing, detesting. Basically, he hates his own life. Now, here there are two words that we need to understand. The word so, I literally reads as my soul, my nephesh, which is the same as this word here, my nephesh. And so every time you see the word I in verse 1, you would see that he is talking about himself, disgusted, detesting his own life, his own existence. It is very much like a person talking to himself, looking at himself. So the Hebrew idea of nephesh is that part of the person that's inside that is alert, that's alive, that can feel, and he is the person or the being. I think that would be a better word. And so he always says my soul in a translation, but it is himself. He is really upset with his current existence, and this would be his current existence. We're not talking about what has happened before, because it was great. He was the greatest man of the East. He was very rich. He was very respected. And now he is sitting on a pile of dust to clean his own sores. And it's painful from the inside out. And so he says this: I will express my complaint freely. I will speak in bitterness of my soul. Now, what this means is he is totally in pain. And he's telling his friends, I have to say, I cannot keep quiet. He's also trying to express his innermost feeling. And so in the book of Job, from here, you would see that all this is poetic language that is trying to paint us the imagery of how painful Job is right now. And so he is saying, don't shut my mouth. I will say what I have to say until I can't say. And then he says, I will say to God. And so now from verse 2, he is directing his words to God, right? El Elo, uh, Eloach. And this means that he is now turning his rebuttal. Chapter 9 was very much against Bildad. Now towards God, he is expressing his anguish. So he speaks to God and says, do not condemn me. Do not say I am guilty. Okay? Do not say I am guilty. Let me know why you contend with me. Contend means to quarrel. Interestingly, the people of the past sees this as a quarrel, contending, fighting with him, striving with him. Basically, that would be the idea here. And he is struggling. So you can see he is struggling with his condition and he is looking at God. Why do you say I'm guilty? Tell me, why are you having this quarrel with me? Because in Job's mind, Job contends he is innocent. His friends say otherwise, obviously. Verse 3. Is it right for you indeed to oppress? This would be oppress me, to humble me. Right? This is a good word here. To oppress, to humble, to press down. You need to understand that this word is very, very oppressive kind of idea, oppressed as if something is against him. So is it okay for you to oppress me? And then apparently you reject the work of your hands. What is he saying? Me. I am fashioned by you. I am your servant. And it seems that you have cast me away. This word here is refuse, as in reject, to despise the work of your hands. And it seems that you are looking favorably on the plan of the wicked or the counsel of the wicked. Now, what Job is saying is, look at this. It seems that the wicked, you are not oppressing, you're not giving them all these pains. But me, I am the work of your hands. I have been loyal to you. I have been blameless. I'm upright. I am God-fearing. I reject all evil. And yet, as an innocent person before God, I am suffering as if I ought to die. And so that's what he is looking at. He is looking at God, saying that why is he not punishing the wicked, and yet he is punishing him? Now, that would be the picture we have in verse 3. In this argument with God, Job begins to say a number of things. Basically, he's saying this: do you have eyes of flesh? Meaning, are you seeing me as if you are a man? That's the picture that he's trying to say. Or do you see me as mankind sees me? This would be mortal man. This is Enosh, mortal man. He says, God, are you worried that you have no time to punish me? Why must you lay everything at one go? He continues to say, are your days like the days of a mortal? And that would be the same word here, right? Enosh. Or your years like a man's year. Basically, Job is saying, God, are you really like a man, like us? Like a mortal man, that your time is so short that you really have to finish all this punishment in a very short period of time? Verse 6, that you should search for my guilt, my iniquity. This would be the avon, and carefully seek my sin, which is khata. So now this is an A and a B, that you should search for my avon and you seek for my khata. So all the wrongs that I may have, you are trying to search it all out. According to your knowledge, I am indeed not guilty, yet there is no one to save me from your hand. Now, this word here, I am indeed not guilty. Uh, this idea of guilty means I have not walked away, right, from your path. That is what Job is very certain. As much as the friends are contending that he must have sinned, he's saying, no, according to your knowledge. Whose knowledge are we talking about? That's God's knowledge, that I am definitely not guilty. And there is no one to deliver me or save me from your hand. Now, deliver me or save me from your hand, this is the punishment. This is Job. Job is very clear right now. So, one of the interesting things so far that you have seen is sometimes Job is so delirious. Sometimes Job has this the cognitive dissonance. You know, he believes in one thing and yet he is experiencing the opposite, and he's conflicted. And now it seems that you can see that he seems to be very clear in his mind when he says this, that according to your knowledge, God, you know that I am not guilty. I have not walked away from your path. And yet there is nobody to save me from your hand, because your hand seems to have come down upon me. Your hands fashioned and made me altogether. Well, I guess you could think of this as molding, right? Fashion and made me. This is an A and a B, right? A and a B. This is about the formation of Job. Now, the formation of Job is not Genesis chapter 2, verse 7. That would be the discussion on how Adam was formed from the dust of the Adamah, shaped, and then God blew into his nostrils the breath of life, and then Adam became a living being. But in this case, in terms of fashion and made, you can say that this idea of fashioning literally means to shape, right? To shape me. And the second word, make, asa, is to, well, I guess you could say this, to produce me. So these are all in terms of the formation of Job. But when you talk about the formation of Job, as we go down the next few verses, this is the formation of Job in the embryo stages. Yet would you destroy me? Uh, and I guess you could say um, this word would be to swallow up me, right? To swallow up. Now, this word all together is another interesting word. Um, this seems to be in a different line, right? This seems to be a different line, and this is a concept of of I guess you would say this directly translates as um, your gathering, your gathering surrounds me. Seems to be giving an imagery, an image of the hosts of God. Now, this seems to be one way of looking at it, but I think this is more in looking at the all the all the elements that God has put together in the embryo as surrounding the baby. That would be this particular word. One word here is actually two words here. It says, your gathering surrounds me, yet you would destroy me. And this is telling God, you've done so much to form me and put me together. Why would you swallow me up? Remember, he's talking to God. Remember that you have made me as clay, and yet you would turn me into dust again. Now, a couple of words that we need to remember to understand. The word remember is to bring to mind. Don't forget, God. It is you who have made me as clay. Now, this word as clay uh, would be like a heap, right? A heap of earth. You have made me this way. And this word turn me into dust again, turn me again, literally means return me into dust. Now this word here is shuv. It comes from this word shuv, which we use to denote repentance, to go back to where you came from. And so the turning into dust again comes from the metaphor of Genesis chapter 3. From dust you were taken, and to dust you shall return again. The first time this word shuv is used, Job is referring back to that same concept. You have formed me using clay, and then you would move me and return me back into dust again, or to return me as dust. Verse 10, Did you not pour me out like milk and curdle me like cheese? Now understand that this is the imagery of birth, right? In the embryo, you clothe me with skin and flesh and intertwine me with bones and tendons. Tendons here is sinews. These are your muscles being put together. And so all of these is now discussing the formation of the baby, or baby Job, if you want to call it that way. In verse 12, then he continues to say this: you have granted me life and goodness. Now, this one is chesed. Chesed means kindness. You have given me kindness, and your care has guarded my spirit. Now, this idea of spirit is ruach, the very essence within Job that keeps him alive, and you have protected. And so you can see that God is guarding, God is protecting. And this idea of your care, you can actually see that it is, how should we say this? Yeah, I guess care would be good. Your oversight, you have looked over me, right? You have looked over me and you have protected my ruach. And then verse 13. After all these, this is the miracle of life in the form of a baby born, right? This is the formation and birth. In verse 13, it says, yet you have concealed these things in your heart. I know that this is within you. Now, what do you mean this? You have concealed, you have hidden. Job is having this idea: God, you have done all these miracles, brought me to pass, and yet you seem to have forgotten all these things. You have used your miracle powers to form me as a baby, and I was born with life into this world. And now you let me suffer like this? That would be the kind of idea in his mind. If I have sinned, you will take note of me and will not acquit me of my guilt. Now, this is now a proposition to God. Verse 14. The word sin is the word khata, right? Khata. And usually these meaning would be miss. You shoot a target, but you missed. So this really means an what we call an unintentional. So it generally gives us a picture of unintentional. If I have accidentally sinned, and then it says, you would take note of me. This you would take note of me means that you will not ignore me. That's, I think this is a better way of expressing. The word here really is, you will observe me, right? You will remember me. And then it says here, you will not acquit my guilt. Acquit means to make clean. You will not make clean my iniquity. And this would be avon right here. So we have an idea of khata and avon. And so it is now contrasted as an A and a B, meaning the two lines is really talking about the same thing. Job is saying, really, if I have done wrong, you you will not ignore it, right? And if I have guilt or iniquity, you will not just ignore it or make me clean. Verse 15. Now it says something very important because of this word im, right? If. If would be a conditional. It says, if I dealt wickedly, if I did something which is wicked, if I actually did it, right? If I did it. Now, this word, woe to me, this is really to say, uh, well, there is no equivalent English word. The idea of woe to me, although you can see it in the English word, this would be equivalent to our modern day too bad, right? Or what some of the young kids would say, too bad, so sad. If I really did this, then he says to himself, too bad. But then he says, but if I am righteous, now this word righteous is just, I've done right, right? I've done right. I also dare not lift up my head. I am full of shame. I am I am completely filled with the word shame is disgrace. And conscious of my misery. This word conscious means I actually see. I see my misery. And this word misery is affliction. Now, in this verse, what you can say is this: if Job has done wrong, then too bad. Nothing he can say. But if he's right, he also cannot do anything. That is what he's saying. Because in any way, I know I am right, and yet I am suffering like somebody who has done wrong. And so he is saying to God, look, either which way, I lose. Verse 16, and should my head be high, you would hunt me like a lion, and you would show your power against me again. Now, this word here, it is not about my head. Sorry, it's not about my head here. It basically says that if I raise my head, you can say raise my head, because here I dare not lift my head. So it is a contrast that you see here. And if I lift my head, you would hunt me like a lion. And this means that you're going to eat me up. That's the picture that's being painted here. And you would show your power against me. The idea here is you will show your, how should we say, your extraordinary, mm, well, you could say your extraordinary works against me. This will imply uh, a guilty verdict, a guilty pronouncement. And so the picture here is this: if I lower my head, I'm full of shame. If I lift up my head, you would, well, in modern day terms, it's like if I lift up my head, you'll chop it off, right? That kind of an idea. Verse 17. You renew your witnesses against me and increase your anger toward me. Hardship after hardship is with me. This is a picture that says that every time uh, you renew your witness against me, is that I have pain plus pain plus pain. And the pain is telling me what you are doing. And it seems that as it grows in pain, it shows that your anger toward me is growing. He's actually reflecting on his incredible, immense pain. And the final statement here, um, you would see that this would be the changes. These are the changes. It's not just hardship, but the changes uh changes of times is with me. This is really talking about that he is suffering so much, it is pushing him, right? Pushing him to the end. That is the imagery. It keeps going and going, and sometime down the road, it has to stop. As we come towards the end of chapter 10, he now reflects upon himself. He says, why did you bring me out of the womb? The womb itself has given me the miracle of life. And now I am suffering as if I am supposed to die. So the question here is why? That is right here. If only I had died and no eye had seen me. If you recall, this is in chapter 3. He wished he was not born. He wished he would have died at birth. Nobody would have seen him, and then nobody would be seeing him suffering, and he wouldn't be feeling what he is feeling now. I should have been as though I had not been. What does that mean? I should have been as if I did not exist. This is how he feels about life now. Would I that I was brought out from the womb to the grave? It is as if I just made a transition from birth and, and all the way to the grave or the tomb. We look at our last few verses. Remember, the last word here is the tomb. It says, would he not leave my few days alone? This is are not my days few? This is a good translation suggesting to God, to God, to give him or Job, right? A few days of peace. before he dies. Withdraw from me so that I may have a little cheerfulness. So if you read this carefully, this would be an A and a B. It is talking about time to live properly before he dies. Verse 21. Before I go, I shall not return. Now, this word here is this, it says this way: I shall not return to this life. Basically saying death. It is a poetic way of saying death. And so this word go literally means walk. So before I walk and not come back. So if you think of it this way, a person has a home, he goes out and walks out and he doesn't come home. This is an oriental picture of death. And where is he going? He's going to the land of darkness and deep shadow. Now, this word deep shadow is actually you can also use the shadow of death. Like Psalm chapter 23, right? Though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, that's the same word. So to the land of darkness, so death is depicted this way. It is dark in so many words. It is the land of utter gloom of darkness itself. It says that the land is full of darkness, is covered with darkness, right? It's covered with darkness. So it's talking about a place. And this is the concept of Sheol in Hebrew. And he keeps describing it of deep shadow without order. Now, again, this word deep shadow, it is the darkness of shadow of death. You could say that. A deep shadow would be the darkness of the shadow of death. Same word, right? Same word, deep shadow. And it says without order. Now, the idea of order here is arrangement. It is not arranged, it's not in order. You find that this word here comes from word seder, uh, like in a Jewish feast. You call the Pesach seder. There is an order of service, and so this place has no order. That's what it means, right? No order, no arrangement. There is nothing there. And then it shines like darkness. And it is the same word as this darkness, which you don't see in the translation. I just gave you that translation. Basically, this is the idea of Sheol. And the idea of Sheol is a dark, dark place. That's the description here. And that he goes, right? He goes and he will not come back. 21 and 22 gives us the grave picture that Job prefers to die, and that asking God Why don't you give me a few more days so that I can have my life back, since I am going and I'm not coming back? Now, that's the picture we are getting in chapter 10. And with this, we come to the end of our session today.